And we are live. My name's John Paul Berg, and this is Dumb the Wiser. We have today with us our very special guest, Mr. Peyman Askari. How you doing, Peyman?
I'm doing good. I imagine air quotes when someone calls me special.
It just seems so appropriate. I have to go for it now. It's the recurring a little tradition with it.
Fair enough. I'll take it.
Yeah, but we were talking a bit before the stream, and like we were kind of saying some of the feedback we're getting on some conversations is it's kind of a lot of the same. It's just almost blackpilling a little bit, and that's not the intent. It's to really find a pragmatic solution right now. It's not an easy endeavor, that's for sure. But it's definitely something we have to start talking about. So if the chat, I mean, there's no one here yet, but hopefully we can get some suggestions from the chat. Because I mean, honestly, beyond organizing and informing and trying to attempt to wake people up to what's occurring, I don't think there's much. I mean, we could do. I think anything else would be kind of weaponized against us. If we start in small numbers trying to do organized demonstrations or anything, it'll be shut down fairly easily. So we kind of need to garner public support before that's even an option. And I look at some of the things from like the Dominion Society. I think that's a great first start. Setting people up as a powerful demographic of voters. The point they make, they raise that I think is one of the most relevant is like a lot of these other groups that are coming into Canada, these immigrant groups, they know how to organize and they know how to play the political game. And that's one thing that Canadians don't realize anymore. We don't have that unity. And it's a massive problem, right? So it's how do we even address that?
That's a good observation you made. Another observation I'll make about the Dominion Society, they have a very simple message, a very simple vision, which is they want to take back Canada to being its English, Scottish, Irish, and French roots. And they have a very simple solution for how to get there: remigration, kicking the newcomers out. I don't know if it's going to work, but if as far as a product goes, that's a very easy sell. It's just those two things.
It's funny. I've never heard the term prior to them utilizing it. When they came, I never heard of it. I heard deportation or things like that, and then a more nuanced, explanation for it. But I've never heard that term remigration until very recently. I assumed when I first heard it that it entails some kind of help in maybe a payment or at the very least to facilitate them leaving in some way. Because otherwise, wouldn't it just be deport people? Wouldn't it just be deportation? Like, is it trying to be a positive spin on it in some way?
I think in the US, they still have integrity, they have dignity, so they couldn't do legally what we have done here, which is flood their country. So they had to do it illegally. And if they're here illegally, you can deport them. But if they're here legally,
yes.
It's like, what do you do, right? You remigrate.
Yeah, and lots of these, it's more of a gray area. They've overstayed work visas, they've overstayed student visas. I think from the start, we should just pick a date, like 2015. Anyone who is come, and then have like a tribunal to kind of assess all these different claims. It's going to cost a fortune. That's undeniable. And I mean, to get people behind it is going to be another obstacle, right? And it's, again, man, I hate to go right to the black pill, but I'm trying to be as sincere as I can with it. And I don't know if it's going to be a tough sell. I'll leave it there.
I don't know if the country, Canada, has the stomach for it, but you could just say, you know what, we're canceling any visas. We don't even care if you did it the right way. If you're a permanent resident, sorry, we'll pay you back for whatever it costs you to get here, but you're out of here. And then if you really want to go to extreme, you could just print money at the Bank of Canada and buy out these franchises from the new immigrants like Tim Hortons and gift it to the youth. Be like, here, hold on, foster it for the next 20 years. Just don't start a revolution.
It's to look at all of this when it started. One of the premise for these temporary worker programs and the other one, the IM, what is it? International Mobility. There's another letter. I don't know if it's the IMP. I'm getting it mixed up with the IMF in my head. But the premise for these was the population bust. Like, there's Canadians are going to be retiring in a large number, and we're not going to have enough working Canadians to kind of support the Ponzi scheme that a lot of our social programs are. So, I mean, I think honestly, to not go right to pure malice, a lot of it, an explanation could just be absolute desperation in trying to keep this failing system afloat. But the way to approach it would have been a natalist way, like to just pro-natalism, like let's incentivize Canadians to have children. And the problem could have been addressed within one generation. It's that easy, sincerely. And there's a lot of cases in history where that's done. And Viktor Orban has done similar things to success. And Poland has similar laws and policies in place. That's the way to address that. But I mean, we're here. So that's almost kind of a moot point to bring that up. But what do we do? Like, my gut tells me that it's very unlikely we're going to get permanent residents and we're going to get people that are here and kind of follow the policies out. I don't think Canadians have the stomach for that. But I think one very good start would be we have to put a moratorium on immigration until we figure this out, obviously. And we have to end these worker programs. And then anyone who's here illegally that has overstayed their whatever their status was, they should be addressed primarily. And then when we get there, we could kind of see where we go from that stage. But it seems just almost ambitious to the point where it's going to hurt the effort to go that far with it. It's going to be that much. And I get the premise too. Like, it's a Vanguard thing. It's like they expect debate and they're trying to stretch the Overton window. I understand it. But it just, when I think of it in a practical way, like, how is this going to resonate within this Canadian electorate, which I feel I know fairly well at this point, and I know how the media influences it. It's like, I think that's just going to be torn to shreds, man. I'm surprised the law enforcement hasn't went after them in some regard at this point. That's how fucked up Canadian is. Pardon the language.
Yeah, let's put aside shenanigans from CSIS. I mean, I think at this point, what's going to happen is the Dominion Society is going to come out and say we should take every immigrant over the last 10 years and throw them into the ocean, and hopefully that'll encourage the powers that be to reduce immigration by like 1 or 2%. Things are so bad that if you talk about the extreme, maybe we'll get something sensible out of it.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I was indicating. Like, that's what it seems like. It's taking a hard issue to kind of move the conversation in a certain direction. And I think it's been very successful because everyone's talking about it now. And it is, I've always said the biggest thing Canadians have always faced was this weaponized mass migration. I knew what it was right away. And that was the majority of my content was focused around that. And it's hard because right away people start to try to put it in this box, like you're some kind of ethno-nationalist or anything. And for me, it was never about that. It was just practicality. And I often utilize the analogy, like, if I have a family of 5 in a 3-bedroom home, like, I'm not going to take in the people from the neighborhood because it's going to affect my family, right? Like, it's just, we don't have the room, we don't have the infrastructure, and it's not going to have any net positive benefit for Canada. Like, I've seen the working class wage suppression, the inflation in the housing market relative to scarcity, because we just brought in millions of people. And I don't think they know how many there are. There was a lot of debate there recently because people started sharing these graphs that were showing the various worker programs and how many people came in, and a lot of criticism, and even got Community Noted that was saying this doesn't indicate specifically how many stayed. But on the flip side of that, but it doesn't say how many left neither. So I mean, it's basically the Community Note is saying, like, we just don't know. And I mean, let's be honest, nobody knows how many people are in Canada. That's how bad it is right now.
Yeah, that immigration thing, when I was at the PPC, I followed the numbers religiously. But after a while, I was like, you know what? This is ridiculous. Like, no one's listening. Nobody seems to care. I wanted to say one other thing. And now the election's behind us, and I can actually disclose this so that the PPC doesn't get angry at me. The PPC's secret weapon was immigration. Like, that was the thing we were saying. There's far too much immigration. By leaning into this elbows up thing and driving, like, people just lost their mind. It took the wind out of the sails of the PPC and, by extension, the Conservative Party. They swept it under the rug, and Canadians, you have no one else to blame. But we have no one else to blame but ourselves.
And I see it that way too. But then a big part of me is like, how real is this system? Like, seriously, like I know that they let us vote, but do they count them? Because what happened with the leadership for the Liberals this time, and just like Pierre's hesitancy to just call it out for what it is, like my big thing is like Pierre's silence. Like, why isn't he on a podcast right now saying like, yeah, Carney's he's a globalist. He's a central banking WEF member. He actually wrote a book on how to transition a free market system into a human values-based commodity system where carbon is commodified and we're all basically slaves in this system. Like, he won't say anything real. And it's not conspiracy conjecture. And I get all the arguments. Oh, if he says that, they'll attack him. You don't understand politics, bro. That's what I get all the time. I don't understand politics because I think it's incumbent upon a leader with integrity to take these stances and then convince the people that this is the right direction to go. That's what a true leader does. He doesn't do study groups and focus groups and then says, okay, well, maybe I'll speak about the temporary worker program now. 4 years after the damage has been done, 5 years, 6 years after the main damage has been done.
Yeah, I mean, if I ever vote again, it's only going to be for somebody that's principled. Like, I need a leader that stands on principle, as you mentioned, not one that looks the polling, not one that says, well, this is what the voters want, and maybe we'll lower taxes here, we'll streamline healthcare. No. What kind of a country do you want to live in? What's your vision for Canada? Let's start there.
Yeah, we got to get back to fundamentals. And number one, it's like we've been conditioned through our lives to accept these very surface level people, these very fake politicians. This like great Christian male, never did a controversial thing in his life, was a great guy, this infallible facade. And it's just, I remember being a little kid when I first started to pay attention to politics. I'm like, why are they all so full of shit? I thought to myself, like, why are they all so just blatantly fake? Everything's so contrived and synthetic. And it's like, I think that's what really was the shock with Trump. When Trump first came on the scene, like, here's this business guy. He's donated to a lot of this political class. He knows how corrupt it all is. And he's just coming out and, I'm flawed, whatever. I'm going to say it this way. And it resonated with people. Because I think we've been deprived of reality in the political sphere for so long that we were just like, okay, I don't care if this man is brash or saying things like non-eloquent or he's not the best moral past. I mean, he's honest. He is who he is. And I think that resonated with people. And we were able to differentiate between him and everything else we've seen. And a lot of people that were commenting on politics at the time seen it. There was a lot of people that seen what Trump was doing and how it was resonating, and a lot of people were able to successfully predict his rise to power. And where other people were just like, oh, that's silly, that's crazy, the celebrity billionaire dude, never. And other people seen it.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect a billionaire to help the working and middle class. Now, if we want to replicate that here in Canada, just intimidating people and calling them stupid until they get behind Pierre Poilievre it's not going to work. Like I mentioned this in our last space together, and we were talking about this earlier. Show me how we're going to take back the Conservative Party, like step by step. And once we do, then we can clean house, and then we can go to the voters and say, what are our shared values? And we can start building that. Hopefully it'll take less than 10 years, but show me the steps. If not, what else can we do? We need to start from scratch again. That party is just cancer.
Yeah, and it's preventing Canadians from seeing, because it's like I keep using the term, it's a pressure release. It's like everyone's mad about politics, and that's the insidious brilliance of a uniparty system, of a controlled opposition dialectic thing like that. It's like everyone is mad, and this one dog that is scaring the herd to the other guy. And there's Pierre saying these things that are pre-scripted, defectless, sloganeering rhetoric, and he captures people. He captured me. Like 2 years ago, I supported Pierre. I went and I met him. I went to some rallies. Like, I supported the CPC. I didn't partake in the vilification of the PPC. I always aligned more with them, but me, just like every other Canadian that's not looked into this to the extent, I thought that Pierre has had a more realistic chance of attaining power and changing. It's like, I don't want the liberals to get in. I fell for it all until I didn't anymore. And like for me, once I seen this thing, I could not unsee it. And I just started to go deeper and started to really see this. And I endeavored to wake as many people up to this, because that's, like you say, if that's not dealt with, or at the very least, if we can't convince a large contingent of our electorate that it is fake and it's time to support a third party option like the PPC, then we're truly not going to get out of this. It's just this cycle will continue.
So it doesn't have to be the PPC. So just so people don't think that you and I are partisan, I'm in BC, it's the same thing that's happening with One BC and the BC Conservative Party.
Mm-hmm.
They are using, sorry?
There's libertarian parties and other third parties, Christian parties and stuff. It's just like anything outside of the uniparty.
Right. But I think these social media influencers and these podcasters, they don't understand when they say don't split the vote. Mm-hmm. They don't understand what the damage that they're doing. They're basically doing the bidding of the uniparty. Yeah,
100%. Just from a logical standpoint, if you're voting for the lesser of two evils and you're consistently losing your freedom, I mean, it's not working, right? Like it's like I say, the trajectory that Canada and all of the Western democracies has been on since really the 60s, but let's just say since like, mid 2010s, like 2015, is just centralized control, technocratic, centralized control. When I look at the Chinese Communist Party, their system of government it's a hybridized communo-fascist system. It's not like some pure Marxist system, but what it is, it's a neoliberal technocracy. So they have a neoliberal ethos, essentially. Like that's the way they kind of run it. But you can't criticize the regime. It's a totalitarian system. But I mean, and it's technocratic, so it's just really scary, because that's, a lot of people think it has to do with technology. Technocracy is just, it has to do with experts. It has to do with a bureaucratic class of experts that then make the decisions. And that's the scariest thing for me. That's Orwell. That's Big Brother. You're into true dystopia there. And in other times in history, like mankind would be subjugated under different regimes and under different monarchies that were bad. And like, there was always a chance we could escape it. But with the technology that exists now, it's like, I heard RFK say this and it stuck with me. If they lock us down now in totalitarianism, we may never get out. And I really feel that.
This is not the 90s. This isn't even the early 2000s. The amount of regulations, it's crushing my soul. So what happens is China does something, pick a thing, fentanyl, buying up real estate. And then our leaders, the way that they react and the way that we beg them to react is to enslave us with more regulations. Banking has got to be more difficult. You want to buy a cell phone, all of a sudden you got to do these 10 things. You have a company, now you have to declare this every 6 months for whatever, who are your shareholders. So they're scaring us. It's that problem reaction solution. Is that what it is?
Problem reaction solution. Yes, sir. And it's also the nature of socialism and the regulatory states. This is why these economies have stagnated historically. And it's like there's an idiom or an old colloquialism about it. It's like socialist policies create an economic problem. The socialists externalize culpability, blaming the greedy capitalists, and their answer for this is more socialism. So it's the snake eating its own tail. It's a positive feedback loop. And that's what we see time and time again. And I mean, it's just the nature of an economy. I mean, it needs both. I'm not like, I read a lot of Thomas Sowell and Milton Friedman, and I followed a lot of that type of view. I'm not that much of a purist, a free market purist now. I think some reasonable regulatory action is not bad. I think to kind of ensure a fair life for everyone to some extent. I'm not talking about a welfare state, but I'm just not a purist, a free market purist. But I think that's the problems with these socialist systems. And this is unfortunately the way, and I'm sure they convince themselves that, like I always say, like the ruling class, they don't just feel like they can subjugate us. They feel it's their ethical obligation to subjugate us. They feel like it's for our own good. They're doing a benevolent thing in their minds by doing this. And it's just, that's that old idiom, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think we're seeing that.
Yeah, that's definitely the case with Canada. Um, I feel like time is running out because, well, I mean, it's good that we have Donald Trump to the south, the Americans. They're going to put a limit to what Mark Carney can do, but Mark Carney is just going around and I don't even know why he's here at this point because he knew the state that Canada was in. He was, the governor of the Bank of Canada, and he still took on the job. And somebody used him as like he's kind of like a liquidator. They sent him in to just sell off all the assets.
That's how I see. I don't even interpret that he wanted to do it. He never showed any interest in entering politicians. He was very proud of himself as an elite globalist banker. I heard him say that about himself. He was, he loved the thought because he wasn't born into that wealth class, but he attained that level. And I mean, he was always very proud of that. And like, I think that was part of his persona. And now, like, I think his boss has told him, look, dude, you're going to Canada. We don't want to hear it. We're going to call Pierre and tell him. You know what I mean? Don't worry, Pierre's cool. And they just that was how it went. And it seemed like that from the observance perspective, like just observing this thing, like the way he came in and like the two underdogs, Ruby, I can't remember the full name, that Ruby liberal girl, and
Ruby Dalla, and Chandra Arya.
There you go. Though they were very popular, and there was a lot of people just like trolling, saying like, "Oh, we're going to support that," just like a lot of conservatives to kind of mess with the liberal leadership race. But it was having an effect, and they just nip them in the bud, and then everyone else left in the race is an insider, and then he hires the same cabinet. Like, I think that they're probably surprised that we're not in full revolt in some way right now, because like. And it's just relative to the fact that no one's paying attention. And that's why I can't change my mind to start thinking about pragmatic solutions. How do we do this with the least amount of trouble to kind of mitigate what's occurring? Because no one's paying attention yet. They're still not paying attention. Like, I don't know what has to happen in order for them to pay attention, but like, it's just nuts to me, man. And that's where I'm getting a little demoralized. It's kind of like, okay, what are we doing here, guys? Like,
yeah, I don't know if I can put a positive spin on that. I would say going with the Ruby Dalla, and there was another white gentleman that was running for the leadership race during the Liberal leadership convention, and both of them hit on immigration. They said, we need to stop moratorium. One of them actually used the word moratorium. And the effect of the elbows up campaign, Donald Trump bad, was that it shut down that entire debate. So they could have potentially salvaged the Liberal Party, but now it seems like, I don't know. I don't think the Liberal Party's got to die eventually. Mind you, I said that last election.
I try to be a little optimistic, and I know that I wouldn't say I'm cynical. I like to think I'm being relatively reasonable about it, but I can't think it's real anymore. Like, after watching Tim Houston in Nova Scotia, the provincial progressive conservative leader of Nova Scotia, and then Susan Holt, the liberal provincial leader of New Brunswick, doing this climate change lockdown, and just the way it went down 36 hours before Tim Houston announced it, who was first to announce this. He was on X. You could check this. The posts are still there. He was trying to encourage people to come and supporting Nova Scotia's tourism industry, saying like, get into our wild spaces, get into our parks, get out and, enjoy the summer in Nova Scotia. And then 36 hours later, he's like, yeah. And now people could say, oh, well, that's because the weather changed. Sure. I mean, that whole argument is fallacious because it's predicated on a concept that, like, the fire ban is that argument. You don't then extend that logic to say, okay, well, just because a fire ban makes sense and we can all kind of accept that, then we're just going to bar people from going to the forest at all. This was them setting a precedent for something legislatively. At not even legislative. There's no legislative oversight. There's no mechanism for this. This is just at the whim of the provincial government. They can do this now. They can actually restrict our very movement. And again, it's relevant to say over 70% of Nova Scotia is forested areas. So it's really limiting the extent of your movement. And it was a big deal. And the fact that it's still in place in some parts of southern Nova Scotia, but it's slowly been relinquished. And what they accomplished is they did achieve their precedent. They did this. They got away with it. There was very little pushback. There was no organized pushback. And we just continue going. And I get it. Like, what does anybody do it's getting bad, but I don't think Canadians realize the extent of the issue.
So let's go over some of the ways that they can keep winning. One is they steal elections, which they do. You could debate the degree to which. The other one is they use violence. So, threatening to throw Chris Barber and Tamara Leach in jail as a warning. That's a form of violence. Another way is they keep people brainwashed through the CBC. That'll get them something. And the final way is food and security. So as long as there's food and as long as people are safe, they'll put up with this. That final one, it's getting to a point where they can't do that anymore. I was talking to this woman yesterday. She's an immigrant. She was talking about an Iranian woman. She's like, they've let in too many Iranian refugees. We have a gang problem now in West Vancouver.
Mhm.
Like, these things are going to start chipping away at their voter base. And the question I have is, will they double down and will we actually get a revolution and some justice, or will they just be like, all right, we had a good time. We broke the law. Let's go back to being lawful again.
Mm. I think you said the key word in there, revolution of some kind. I often say, like, I don't think we could vote our way out of this. I think the globalist oligarchy, the same globalist oligarchy that's controlling the European Union, that controls Australia and New Zealand, I think they just have too much influence over our institutions. I think our institutions have been irredeemably subverted. And I mean, that's a scary thought, because, like, where do you go from there? And I mean, that all I could think is the Gandhi approach. Like, if we could wake enough people up, we can organize mass demonstrations, totally peaceful, the best we can, and go about it that way. But you need the numbers, and it's so factionalized. Like, I'm watching this thing with Tommy Robinson, and then there's Puck Daddy Joe. I don't know this gentleman. I follow him on X. He's doing something in Toronto on the 13th, some kind of a rally or demonstration. And there's a lot of people that aren't supporting it or hesitant to. And there's a lot of people that saying, oh, it's pro-Zionism and it's because Tommy Robinson's involved and it's this. And it's like, you just don't know where to turn, and you don't know what's a psyop. As a Canadian that's kind of awakened or is paying attention, like, what group do you trust? Like, I mean, it's not clear. It's never been more unclear. So it's just, I feel terrible for everyone. I feel terrible for me. I don't know I don't exclude myself from this group. I just happen to be watching it. And it's like I said, I got on here a few years ago and I just started talking about everything. I started to try to truly figure out what's going on, knowing full well that everything is lying to me. And I mean, at this point, I find the process cathartic. I don't know if I'm necessarily trying to help people or help myself come to terms with the fact that the Western world, what we grew up in and thought was the free world, was essentially a psyop in very many real ways, like especially geopolitically. Like, maybe the people had some say in some of the policies being made, but the geopolitical actions of the post-World War II order were made by an oligarchy of some kind. I mean, I can't see it any other way.
You mentioned Gandhi. Let's go back to him and the way they treated him. Think of it like a slave plantation. Your only form of salary is the food you get. So the slave master controls you completely. Here, they do it indirectly through taxes. So when people say be ungovernable, well, we don't even get paid in cash anymore. Like, everything is transacted through the banking system. And your money is we're not yet at the point where they take the income tax. You have to declare it and give it. But I mean, what are you going to go to jail? Like, let's say if you and we protested, well, they'll just throw our asses in jail. It's not like we got a lot of people supporting us as is. So I don't, like, there's no way out of this system, and they keep increasing taxes. They keep increasing regulations, which means you need more taxes to pay for it. And I don't know, we'll see what happens.
It's seemingly, and I've mentioned this before, it's a managed decline. It's like they came in, say Canada's a corporation. We got a new shareholder came in, and they put Mark Carney in here. He's the economic hitman. He's here, and instead of just closing it, he's slow. He's declining it. And when they do this in the corporate world, it's relative to them wanting to transition it to something else or another company or get their money out in a different way. That's all I could see with this, and I don't think we're going to even be able to see a pragmatic option until that's complete. I think the decline of Canada is unstoppable at this point. And I think that's the intention. I frequently say it's just so naive at this point to attribute everything to incompetent politicians or bad policies. We're so beyond that making sense. That framing is just trash. This is a managed decline. This is the well-orchestrated implementation of an agenda. And we're all, kind of coming to terms with that in real time. And that's why I think we're seeing so many people are so afraid by the convoluted nature of the ecosystem of information that they're getting tribalistic. Well, what makes sense? Well, they go into whatever, be it their religion, be it their political tribe, if they're, consider themselves. It's funny. On the left, everyone's obsessed with their identity, their pronouns, their gender identity. But on the right, everyone's obsessed with their political identity. And both is just as convoluted. And I think it's keeping us from the broader realization that we can have unity without ideological uniformity. Now, people say I'm a dumb, weak-ass libertarian. Everyone's saying weak-ass libertarian these days, but for thinking that. But I believe that. That's a core tenet. I don't think we all have to have uniformity of thought. I think that's a very gross world. I don't want to live in that world. I like a robust diversity of opinions. And I mean, now there's a lot of problems. I'm not trying to make a case that, the Western world was great. But again, I think it's very relevant with all the post-liberalism gaining traction. It's all the problems in the Western democracies right now are not an inherent flaw of liberal democracy. I can't look at it and assess it that way. What's wrong with the Western democracies presently is a small or oligarchical group of elitists have consolidated power, and they're running psyops on us, and they're intentionally messing with our society, like the Cloward Piven strategy, the weaponized mass migration. These are Marxist tactics of destabilization. So it's like when I see everyone now trying to make this post-liberal argument, we should go back to empire or monarchy because this doesn't work. Whatever this experiment was doesn't work. I think that's disingenuous. I think it's predicated on a fallacious base, which is number one, you're attributing everything that's wrong in the West right now to the West and not to like this external force that's affecting our countries.
You're right about that. I was talking to this other guy who's an Iranian. He said, Iran has to go back to what it was under the Shah monarchy, the Dominion societies, as Canada needs to embrace its, monarchical roots. People see the problem and they're scrambling to find a solution to fix the problem. Here's one solution. If people from any of the political parties on the right are listening, Mark Carney has shifted the Liberal Party slightly to the right of the Conservative Party on certain issues. War in Ukraine is one. So I think with the announcement of the NDP coming out and saying they're going to have like 100 votes has to come from non-cisgender men. I don't know if you heard about this. What they're trying to do, it's crazy, but I think it's an agreement between the Liberals and the NDP. The Liberals, they're both the same party, but they said to the NDP, you guys go far left, we'll go a little bit right. And that way, if we lose anyone, it'll go over to your camp. So we need to, on the right, offset that with something resembling what I said about regulations. It's too many regulations. We want to live in a free world. That's a nonpartisan issue.
I agree 100%. And it's also one of the main, the reason Canada is so anti-business and anti-entrepreneurship is because of these regulations. Like what you would have to do as an entrepreneur in Canada to get your project off the ground, just in the preliminary stages of any endeavor, is going to be like you're going to need so much more money. So I mean, it's very much putting you at a disadvantage immediately to try to be an economic force in Canada and to invest, and it's excluding the small people from the game, and it's just these big power players. And what I see when I see this, because I've expressed this already, I believe Carney is here, and this is a managed decline. And I think what they want to transition us to is what Carney says in his book. Everyone, when I start to lay this out, everyone's like, "You're crazy, dude." Until I say, "Well, I mean, Mr. Carney actually did write this down in his book, and I challenge anyone to vet me on this and go read his book." But the premise of it is to transition free market economies. And I'm not talking about the difference between like Keynesian economics and versus other schools. I'm talking about a radical transformation where it's not based on like gold as a commodity or it's not fiat currency like the usury debt system. It's actually they base it on carbon, the commodification of carbon. and then like your carbon emissions. And then that's how they would get equity in this system, is everyone would get an allocation of carbon credits. And people don't understand the gravity of that, I think, when you explain it to them, because they're like, oh, that's cool, I could sell them and get some more money. It's like, no, that's going to be money, essentially. Everything's going to be tied into this social credit system. Whitney Webb is great. I'll reference her for anyone that really wants to. She deep dives on Carney and what this system means and how it's going to look when it's manifesting itself. And it's terrifying. Again, I go to science fiction dystopia. The closest would be like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, or Orwell's 1984, or any other dystopian version of society. It seems like we're going there so fast we can't stop. You look at, like, even on the Trump side, there's Palantir. Like, that's some dark, weird shit. And then on the other side, there's the Chinese technocrats or the European technocrats. Like, it's just, I don't know if humanity's getting out of this one, man.
Yeah, I mean, so the good news is that we have Donald Trump and he's giving us some liberty. The bad news is I think he's just trying to buy time until he can consolidate in the Western Hemisphere, North and South America. So that recent incident where he took out that boat, I think it was invented. Like they're saying that they're preparing for not even an invasion of Venezuela. They're preparing for a decapitation, like what Israel tried to do with Iran.
Sure.
This isn't like a return to the rule of law and civility. This deep state's going to just keep going and going. And it's like, Canada's nothing. Canada's nothing compared to the US. And our only hope is the US. So I'm kind of freaking out over here.
Yeah, me too, bro. And I have been for a long time. It's like, we've been speaking about this now for close to a year, I would say. And it's the same thing. It's like we said, I remember one of our very early conversations using the analogy, like we're on this ship and we're going in towards tumultuous waters or icebergs, and no one seems to give a fuck. Pardon the vulgarity, but that's where we're at, and everyone's in denial. And then instead of us getting together and kind of seeing a cohesive vision or a coherent vision to move us forward, we're fighting and tribalizing and factionalizing with one another on every side of this. It's just becoming more convoluted. We're getting angrier at one another. We're blaming each other. And whatever's at the root of all this, man, not to get theological, I keep it fairly secular, but at the root of all this, I see as true evil. However that influences mankind, it's evil. And I don't think we defeat true evil by factionalizing and fighting with one another. I think we defeat evil by unifying in some way. And I'm not trying to sound all hippy dippy and, we got to just come together, man. But in some sincere, legitimate, tangible regard, we're not going to defeat this by fighting one another, because that's what the oligarchical class would love to see. And they're loving watching it right now. And that's what's happening. We have to find a prioritized unifying ethic right now. Like, what's the most important thing in the Western democracies? Well, it's the integrity of our institutions, because we all know, I don't care if you're in the UK, if you're in, a different EU country, if you're in New Zealand or Australia or Canada, we know that it's not above board. And I mean, that's just step one in some regard. So I don't know, man.
I'm going to a conference in Calgary on the 18th, 19th, We Unify. And pretty much everyone on the right that has that's a famous person, they'll be there. The movers and shakers. And what I'm going to check for, and this will be a signal of whether Canada is going to be okay or whether we're doomed, is if they come up with a solution or something resembling a solution, or if they're just going to be talking about the problems all over again. Not that it's not cool that you and I are talking about the problems. Yep. But what I mean is, like, you need to start getting a leadership process forming. Somebody has to step up as a leader on the right, or group of people like Dominion Society. And we all agree to put our differences aside for the common good, and we move together in a unified manner. If we can't do that, I don't know, then just take out a loan, go to Mexico on vacation, wait for Trump to do something.
That's how I feel too. And I don't know if where it is so divided right now and everything is just worked up to this fever pitch, I don't know if we're going to be able to see that. I don't know if we're going to be able to see past our own rage and our own propensity for tribalism and make that very obvious extension of logic that if we're going to defeat this, we have to unify in some regard. That's just the way it is, man. And it's like what I'm seeing is the opposite of that. I mean, anything that was like verging on the right of Canada with the PPC and some of the libertarians and some of the Christian parties, like that's so factionalized now, and everyone's fighting with one another. It's just, I don't know, man. It again, it's the black pill episode today. And then again, like we're looking at a lot of this in a vacuum, like geopolitically, like the post World War II liberal order is just, it's fragmented in and of itself, and there's different power interests that are vying for influence within this, and we don't know the extent of it. It's like I often say, it's like right now everything's so chaotic geopolitically and domestically that it's like we're watching a curtain. Like the curtain is down, and it's swaying this curtain so much that we're actually able to see behind it a little bit, and we could see little facets of this machine that we thought was real. And we're realizing, and we're all coming to the very disconcerting conclusion that it's not real. And I mean, I keep saying it this way. It's like all of politics in the West now is this performative charade to provide the peasantry with the illusion of participatory governance. It's to make us, and again, going back to that pressure release theory, like Pierre Poilievre being controlled opposition gives us a pressure release. You're mad about the foreign worker program. You're mad about the change in your community, about the decline in quality of life. Hey, Pierre Poilievre saying some shit right now somewhere. You'll see a bunch of people in his comments like, yeah, Pierre, bring it home, bruh. And it's just like, I don't know, man. Like, he didn't bring it home yet in any meaningful capacity. He hasn't even really, articulated specifically what he's bringing home. It seems like he wants to bring home more immigrants into Canada and more chaos and more terrible globalist policies.
Yeah, I don't talk about Pierre Poilievre. He's useless to me. You mentioned the pressure release. We go back to the election. If you remember, Jagmeet Singh, a man who will, his name will live in infamy. He was the one that was causing all of the pressure because he was holding this government together, and everyone was like, call an election. And then the pressure release came in the form of, and this was brilliant in its evil nature, the prorogue. So when they prorogued, it seemed to release some of the pressure. People didn't have Justin Trudeau to hate on anymore. And then like just that entire movement kind of lost steam. They hijacked it. They brought Carney in. They told the CBC to, spread the propaganda. And it goes back to what you just said. Like, do we live in a democracy? Not a good one.
It's very clear that we don't. And I mean, we're in Canada. I feel that we're amongst the most heavily propagandized electorate within this globalist order, because we can't see past the uniparty. In the UK, they know what's going on. I mean, they're even skeptical of Nigel Farage. Their kind of PPC party, their third party populist option. They're skeptical of him now. So I mean, they're way ahead of it than we are, and we're still arguing over this uniparty, which I just think is synthetic. I just think it's distractionary. And that's the biggest thing that's preventing Canadians from seeing this thing, is they believe it's real. And of course they're going to believe it's real. What are they going to believe, you and I, who come on here and start to poke holes in it and speculate? Because I don't have any evidence that it's not real beyond what I've interpreted with my eyes and ears, beyond the preponderance of circumstantial evidence that very much indicates that. But it's still, people will say, like, where's your proof, bro? And it's like, I don't know. It just makes me think we're in Orwell's 1984. It's like we now reject the evidence of our eyes and ears. And we reject the evidence of our eyes and ears in lieu of this narrative. This narrative that we're being inundated with from, and in Canada, I often say too, like, they don't only get it from the mainstream media and the corporate press swill merchants. Canadians are getting it on alternative media. They're coming on to X and Instagram and TikTok, and they're getting these disingenuous shills. People that are presenting themselves as if they're just a member of the electorate who's either conservative leaning or liberal leaning, and they're going to just perpetuate this dialectic. We talked about it before, man. I got to try to get it out properly. And a lot of this I learned from Jordan Peterson and some of his discussions on personality and proclivities for certain political leanings relative to personality. So, I mean, the way he kind of articulated it is that people who are high in openness or high in openness and creativity tend to lean to the left. And people who are high in orderliness and conscientiousness tend to lean to the right. So we're genetically predisposed to certain temperaments, and then we're temperamentally predisposed to these political leanings. So if I'm an oligarchical ruling class and I wanted to get people caught up in this system, how would I do it? Well, I would exploit that. I would exploit the propensity for this political bend and play it off against one another. And I think that's been done at different times. I think that was done in Europe in a lot of the cases in a lot of the countries in between World War I and World War II. And I think a lot of people called it out. Not that I'm a big proponent of the reinterpretations of World War II, but I definitely think there's some questionable things. I have some new questions regarding the narrative I was fed. But Hitler pointed that out in a lot of his speeches. He says they're controlling us by controlling both sides of the political discourse, and really it's controlled by one person. Mussolini, other people that are the bad guys of World War II. I don't want to get on that whole hate train, but I mean, it's just, I think that's kind of one of the best ways to herd people, is make them think it's all real and get them fighting with one another, keep them divided in this synthetic right-left dichotomy, and just perpetuate it.
So for the audience, let's make this more concrete. When we say left, we mean people that say, dick choppers, cut your genitals off. When we say right, the extreme would be like an ethno-nationalist, only white people should be this, that, and the other. When we say they, we're talking about people who benefit from increasing the regulations, people who benefit from centralizing power in the judiciary, people who benefit from, cartels or monopolies. So, like you and I, we can't start a telecommunication network. We probably couldn't even start a small company of gardeners or painters. Like, there's just too many. We definitely couldn't start a restaurant. It's all consolidated where I am. So, they got us arguing, bickering over these little things. And meanwhile, we're being completely enslaved through, principally, in my opinion, regulations.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't know if we're going to be able to make enough noise to wake people up. That's where and I hate to be cynical, because I'm not. I'm going to fight this the whole way. But what I see coming next is censorship. I see sweeping online censorship in Canada. I think they're going to want to really create examples of people like they were trying to do with Tamara Litch and Chris Barber, where it's like the litigation, or not, the process, the legal process itself is the punishment. Drawn out, 5 years in court costs, all of this stuff, the demoralizing aspect of that. It's pure weaponization of the legal system and weaponization of the process more specifically. But what I see is them passing their online harms bill. I see them being successful somehow. I don't know how they're going to be able to do this, because Pierre Poilievre is going to have to feign opposition in some way. So how does that happen? But it's necessary. The way I look at it is there's a major obstacle for this. And it's people like you and I and millions of other people in Canada that are looking at this thing, and we're talking to each other. We're trying to build our followings. We're trying to get our message out, get over the noise to wake people up. I think that represents an obstacle for them. And I think they have it's almost like a palpable desperation to pass these speech laws and shut us down. And the way they're going to do it is just like they did in the UK. Any deviation from their orthodoxy, even if it's a reasonable criticism of their migration policies, it will be construed as misdis or malinformation, and therefore it'll be censored, or it'll be construed as hate speech. They'll subjectively determine your speech to be hate speech, and they will weaponize it against you, and they will put you in jail or give you a big fine. And they don't want to do this. I've mentioned this before. They want this system to just work on its own, like it does in China. Chinese people aren't pushing back against this because they know the repercussions. Like, it's already, the fear is there. A totalitarian system is predicated on that fear in some very real way.
So, look at what happened today in Nepal, where the youth, they protested. A bunch of people died. Apparently, some of them were politicians. But why did they do that? Because they banned, X, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. That was a stupid thing to do in hindsight. What are they going to do here? They're going to ban, dumb the wiser. They're going to ban inlaid terms. Like, they're going to do it in a way that nobody gives a shit if we get thrown in jail, right? They'll cheer it on. Peyman Askari, well, how does that impact my ability to get pumpkin spice lattes?
That's
a good
right.
law.
Yeah. And that's it, right? And there's a very fickle dynamic between the ruling class and the people, the proletariat, the peasantry, whatever you want to say, the underclasses. And I mean, once the underclass doesn't have anything else, we see great change happen. We've seen it in reference to the French Revolution. And I think we're approaching that kind of disparity in Canada and other parts of the Western democracies. And it's not even just that we could feel it now, but we could see the trajectory we're going. The immigration is not stopping. It's not even slowing. If anything, it's speeding up. The economy's not getting any better. If anything, it's getting way worse. So, I mean, I think that shock factor is relevant too. But we've been going for 50 minutes now. We got 175 people watching. If everyone could give a like and a share, it helps us immensely. We're both very much deboosted on these platforms. I truly believe that. I won't put words in Peyman's mouth, but I see the analytics and I see other people and how they're performing. And I don't attribute it to the content. I attribute it to algorithmic suppression for sure. But if everyone could share it and like it, that's huge. I'm going to look at these questions here and we're going to see if we can address a few. So Pierre Prairie has most of them. I don't know if there's something wrong with the way my questions come in, but we'll have to do a shout out to Pierre Prairie. Hello, Prairie. Thanks for watching. Thanks for always watching. We appreciate it. What we got here? Roger, a band in the 80s out of Hamilton called The Forgotten Rebels had a refugee song, and one of the lines was "Bomb the boats, feed the fish." I mean, okay, and that's this is where people are at with it, right? And I mean, you got to laugh a little bit. As tragic as it is, like if you don't have a little levity, I mean, how do you get past this? You've seen that with Russia when it was really bad under the Soviet Union. This dark Russian humor came, and we're starting to see this in the Western democracies now too.
Yeah, there was wasn't one of our governor generals was a refugee?
I'm not sure.
Chinese. Yeah, she was. She was a Chinese national. And at the time I was in like grade 3 or 4 and we were, people were pretty upset. They didn't want refugees. But then after that kid drowned in Greece during the European refugee crisis, they used that to shut down any criticism of refugees. They say if you criticize it, kids are going to wash up on shore.
And that's the big argument for anything, right? It's like you're inhuman. You know what I mean? Your opinion or your perspective is causing real violence and real danger, right? And that's how they present speech, as if it's something that has to be controlled. And that's where we are, where they're just controlling everything now. And it's going to be a social credit system. People don't understand what's coming. I think if they did, we would have more people with us and we would have the numbers to make some change.
If that previous guy's question lands us in jail, I'll be really pissed.
That's right. That one question. We'll be sitting in a courtroom together in the near future, having this episode played, just looking at each other.
They keep playing me laughing at it over and over. It turns out the guy's like a CSIS plant anyway.
100%. I honestly, man, a lot of the people that contact me and comment on and stuff, like I'm very hesitant because of that potentiality. That's how bad I think it is. Now, you can say I'm paranoid. Perhaps I am a little bit, but it doesn't mean it's not happening either. So we got MS8719. Whitney Webb is awesome. YouTube, the carbon credit coup. Yeah, I recommend everyone checking out Whitney Webb. She's been getting a lot of publicity lately. Joe Rogan was talking about her. There's a lot of controversy that Joe won't have her on because of some nefarious forces. I don't know the extent of that, but I highly recommend, if you want to be informed and kind of understand what's going on economically and what a lot of these technocratic systems are going to look like, Whitney Webb's content there's nothing else that compares to it. Her research is so thorough and she presents it all. It's very well done. I recommend everyone check that out. Every other question I got here, despite the 184 people watching, it's all Prairie. So we'll have to pick another Prairie. Oh my gosh, JP, you're the first one to talk about the war like that. 100% agree with you. That was bullshit too.
Which war?
Yeah, I don't even know. It's a while back. I should probably start in the future looking at the chat. And not because I like to talk and then it's like, okay, the last 10, 15 minutes, we'll check out the chat. And then at that point, we're so gone past the topic and our conversation moves in so many direction because there isn't any direction. That's what I like about it, though. I really don't want to change that. I like the nature of it. It just kind of goes and it flows, and we always have interesting conversations. But I think we're coming to an end here. We got 55 minutes. Yeah, I say we'll call it an episode. Is there anything you want to say, Peyman, before we take off?
I guess the Canadians, like, don't lose hope. If you're on the left, try to imagine what kind of world you want to live in and move in that direction. And I don't mean, I want to have free healthcare. What kind of world? Why do you want to have free healthcare? And then make up your own mind. If you're on the right, you spend the next few years figuring out how we can unify on the right. You can't just say, you're too libertarian, you're too nationalist, you're too this, that, the other. We don't have that luxury.
And I also want to think, I want to mention that we got to see what unifies us beyond the right-left dichotomy. Like, what kind of values can we say supersede that dichotomy? And I think primarily the biggest one is the integrity of our institutions. If they're not legit, then we're not even having real arguments. We're in this synthetic type of a dichotomy while they're just pushing their agenda. But with that said, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This is Dumb the Wiser. I'm JP Berg. Cheers, guys.